Non-stop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
All right, Purple Daily on draft. Yeah, we have a new little intro here from our friends at the graphics department at Score North. Hit that subscribe button, Daily Vikings Entertainment. Of course, this is Purple Daily on draft. Tyler Forno, Miles Gorham, Declan Goff here. We're going to bring you a little bonus episode, a little day early than our usual episode on Mondays. We're coming at you on a Sunday, on Championship Sunday, because Forno, on our normal recording time, will be arriving, I think, right in Mobile, Alabama around that time. So we figured we'll move Purple Daily on draft up a day instead. So we'll hit you with a little bit of a preview of what Forno's looking for in that Senior Bowl, what prospects could be on the rise. And then we're going to do a live mock draft simulator. We haven't done that yet on Purple Daily on Draft. We do it on Purple Daily, the main flagship show. Figured we would do it here on Purple Daily on Draft with you guys as well, because I've seen some comments that want us to do it. So we'll get into that in just a little bit. Hit that subscribe button for the Daily Vikings Entertainment on YouTube. Of course, we're on podcast on Apple, Spotify, Score North app. However you listen, we appreciate a 5-star review. All right, Forno, you're going down to Mobile, and Miles, I know you've been down there before as well. So Forno, are there any ones you're circling that you're really excited to watch and grind the tape and get in-person looks at? Who are kind of the guys you're excited to see at the Senior Bowl this week?
For me, it's going to be specifically about drills, and I'm going to be looking at one-on-ones. And one-on-ones come in many shapes and sizes. Like Vikings linebacker Ivan Pace Jr. was dominant in pass blocking drills because running backs couldn't get their hands on him, and he was so slippery, and being able to be as small as he is, and he could get underneath those running backs and be able to wreak havoc that way. Tank Dell was dominant in receiver one-on-ones, even though he was 5'8", 163, because nobody could get their hands on him, not even in press coverage. And I talked about this on my show, the Real Forno Show on Vikings First and Skol, when you take these drills and practice, and the whole process of the Senior Bowl, I count it as about 10% of the overall draft process and the overall how you would evaluate these players, because you're not necessarily playing real football, but the skills and everything that you display on the practice field do translate to the actual game. So you want to look at, okay, this guy's getting open here. Does that match the film? And if it doesn't, why doesn't it? And so those are the kind of the things I'll be looking for as a general scale. But a couple of players I'm really looking forward to seeing. Arizona wide receiver Jacob Cowing. He transferred from UTEP after the 2021 season. And it was interesting because at UTEP, he was a deep threat. He's only like 5'11", 178. Like, he's not the biggest guy. He's probably going to be a slot in the NFL. But he was used out wide and in a true, like, we're just going to throw you go bombs. And Arizona 2022, they did a lot more deep stuff with him. But this year, they had the emergence of Tetairoa McMillan, who's probably going to be the top receiver in 25. And he was used more as a true slot guy, a guy that you're going to throw underneath stuff to, screens, and let him work. And I think looking at what the picture is going to be for him is going to be really interesting while we're in Mobile. And I'm really, really excited to kind of see what that looks like. And another guy I'm really, really excited about is New Hampshire running back Dylan Laube. I watched him yesterday, and the dude made the All-Forno team. He's fun. He's a true running back, but people talk about using Christian McCaffrey like an actual receiver. They actually use this guy as a wide receiver. I saw multiple reps of him going into the slot, running out routes, running hitches. They would throw slot fades to him, and he got one against Central Michigan, and he took it for like 60 yards. This guy has a little bit of everything to his game. I'm a little concerned about the athletic profile. I'm not sure how fast he is, because it can be hard to judge against lesser competition, because when you look at lesser competition, they are normally a little bit slower, a little bit less athletic than when you talk at the FCS level and when you talk about the FBS level. So I don't know how quick and fast he is, because it can be hard to compare it at times on film. So I'm really excited to see him against the next level of competition to kind of see what that looks like. It's going to be a really fun week. A lot of really, really talented players. And there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, and that's what makes this so fun.
Miles, you've been down there before too, man. I know you've had some fun times at Mobile. What are the things, Forno says individual drills, and whatnot. What are things that when you've gone down there, that you really like to hone in on prospects that you want to see, flash, or things that kind of make them stand out I guess, in the Senior Bowl with all those great prospects that are there.
The indie drills really are the key, in my opinion, because what you don't get from college players and prospects when they're on their respective teams is they're focused on that scheme. That specific scheme is what they have to focus on and play within. And so when they come to the Senior Bowl, especially in individual drills, you get to kind of see a little bit more of like their true skill set. You get to see a little bit more of who they are as an individual player, not as a team. And that in this draft process is super important for them as an individual. They're no longer like a team. It's no longer a team. It's about them as an individual. So how can they best show themselves that they might not always get to show on their teams? Like I think Spencer Rattler is one of the guys that I'm really excited to see. I know he's a QB name that has kind of flown under the radar. He's a guy just a few years ago who was touted as a potential number 1 overall pick. Now, obviously that was a little premature, but I mean, he has the skill set that I think should maybe show a little bit more of that arm strength and things at the Senior Bowl that you might not see. Some of the things you might not have seen at South Carolina. I think Bo Nix is another one too. You want to see him out of that current scheme that he was in at Oregon and kind of see how he fits within like an NFL style structure. I think that in itself at the Senior Bowl is really important for all these guys. Is like, how do they fit within like an NFL setting from NFL coaches? How do they take coaching? How do they take the approach? Because some guys may have never played special teams, and I think special teams is a key part of the Senior Bowl. Some of these guys have never played special teams in college, and I think you go to the Senior Bowl because a lot of these guys, to get through the league and get into the league and make a roster, they're going to have to play special teams. Those types of things are super important for them. And then obviously you fast forward to this individual drills. It's just, again, you get to really show out who you are as an individual, and you get to show what NFL coaches look for, because they're gonna be teaching you the way that they teach NFL players. So you kind of get to show them how that skill set fits with what they're looking for. And so I love that part of it. I've always been like a one-on-ones individuals. I always like to see like who was he was drafted by he played with Ivan Pace at Cincinnati. Got drafted by the Vegas Raiders. Wide receiver, small dude, not Tank Tail.
Tucker.
Thank you. Tucker. I can't remember. Trey Tucker.
Yeah.
I remember watching him in individual drills because I remember watching him coming into the Senior Bowl last year, being like, this dude's explosive, but he's kind of a gadget player. And then you see him at the Senior Bowl doing individual drills, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna keep an eye on this guy because there's something else there that like I wasn't really seeing on tape. And I think that, like, Michael Wilson last year is a perfect example, wide receiver out of Stanford, drafted by the Cardinals. You just don't get to see a lot of that stuff on tape that you get to see in individual drills, the way these guys move. I'm a wide receiver, offensive guy, so like that's always going to be the areas I hone in on. And I feel like those guys really get to excel in these types of scenarios. And so it's really fun just to kind of watch how these guys develop as individuals compared to how they were on tape or how they were at their respective colleges.
To kind of build off what Miles said really quick, Declan, I think you made a really good point about the environment, because this environment is a complete anomaly from anything these guys are really going to experience in the National Football League, because it's an all-star game. You have a bunch of people going down to talk to you after practice, and some of them are real professionals. Some of them are kids just getting a start. Like when I went 4 years ago, I was a nobody. I was just a guy who worked in a restaurant who was trying to figure out how to navigate this media world. And it's a very unique process. And then you not just practice, then you go have a lot of meetings with teams, and then you go have meetings with your coaches. Like, it's seeing how you navigate something so weird and unique can really tell a lot about a person, and it's about the behind the scenes stuff that can matter a lot too.
And I think that's what I was going to ask too about Forno, about like, and you guys too, just how important some of these things are, because we hear about the combine and the draft obviously too, that gets all the attention, but I feel like this Senior Bowl too is kind of it's definitely picked up a lot more attention. I'm not saying people don't care about it, but it's definitely something I think people still are sleeping on a little bit in terms of the development and the chances of some of these guys becoming NFL prospects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the beginning of this is so key, because you can open eyes to a lot of people. And to Miles's point about kind of, you didn't see a lot of this stuff on film. Some of it is just because of the schemes that they run. So if you're running an air raid, you're not running a full route tree. You're running a very limited scope. So then when
it doesn't mean that those guys can't do it. That's the part that we don't know sometimes, is it doesn't mean those guys can't do it. You just didn't get to see it on their film because they weren't asked to do it. And that's the hard part about assessing prospects is sometimes just because they weren't asked to do it doesn't mean they can't do it.
And you have to be able to contextualize that, and that can be what makes this process so incredibly difficult, and why so many people are wrong so often. It is an inexact science, and every prospect is a little different, a little unique, and having more data and more information to be able to contextualize the film and make better decisions is awesome. And it helps make this process so great and so much fun. I love going to Mobile every year because you learn things about players, you learn things about yourself, you learn things about the evaluation process. And I think what's really unique for the Vikings is they have 2 defensive coaches that are going to be coaching the national team. Passing games coordinator, DB coach Durante Jones is going to be the defensive coordinator. Defensive assistant, I think I pronounced his name right, Emerje Aubrey, is going to be the linebackers coach. And he's going to be coaching a guy named Peyton Wilson from North Carolina State, who's an absolute stud, but he's got a lot of injury concerns. So having guys on the field, talking with these guys, coaching with these guys, having that up close and personal thing can help. The Vikings drafted 3 players at the Senior Bowl last year, and I don't think that was a mistake. I think that could become a trend, and we could see the Vikings drafting guys that directly worked with the coaches that are going to be coaching there.
There might be one more coach that got added to the assistant D-line coach.
Pat Hill's at Shrine.
So he's at Shrine. Okay.
That's going to add another level because now you have another coach at a different All-Star game.
Heck yeah. Well, yeah, we're excited for Forno to have boots on the ground there, and we're going to break down his observations on the next week's episode of Purple Daily on Draft, so stay tuned for that.
I need some insight on Roman Wilson. He's one of the guys I like from Michigan, but obviously limited that what they do, and they ran the ball a lot. So I liked the limited amount of what I saw from him, but I want to see more and how he does just as an individual.
I watched him. He goes zoom. He's got a little bit of nuance to his game, but I gave him a 3rd round grade. I thought he was good, but I didn't see him kind of show a lot of that next level stuff that I really wanted to see. But the nice part about it is you kind of said run heavy offense. Mobile could unlock a little bit of something from him, and I think that's intriguing.
All right, so let's get into a live draft sim here. We haven't done this on Purple Daily on Draft, so we'll pull this up. This is actually from Pro Football Network. Old Dex Tweets needs to steal Phil Mackey's PFF login so we can have PFF sometimes run this, but I didn't have that in time.
I got you too.
Miles has one as well, so that actually could also work out. So instead, we're going to use Pro Football Network, similar type of thing. There just isn't as much nuanced as some of the things on PFF, but still a fun draft sim. So I think, boys, before we really get into this, and maybe we can, make decisions on the fly or as the pick comes up, do we want to go into this mock draft knowing we're going to make the pick at 11? Do we want to do that before we start, or would you like to field some calls? Would you like to move up or move back, or potentially do you want to do any of that before we really get going here? I just want to have some parameters before we just go on the fly.
Can I get a quick hot take, Declan, or like a write that down type of scenario?
Yeah.
The Vikings will not take a quarterback at pick 11. Like, if they're going to take a quarterback, it will be trading up. It will not be at pick 11.
I feel that. Okay. That's probably a safe bet. Forno, how about you, man? Are you good with making a pick? Do you want us to move it? Do you want to try to move up to like 4 or 3? What would you like to do here?
I'd say propose a trade and kind of see what that looks like. But I'm for, with a lot of these simulations, just letting the board fall, because I think the Vikings are going to be really aggressive in trying to trade up. We know that they did last year. And if they love a guy, let's say hypothetically they love all 3, then you just try to get into the top 3. And if you love all 3, then you're fine with whoever's there.
Sure.
But I also don't know if they're going to be able to get it done, because none of those teams may want to trade.
Okay.
And I find that very fascinating. So I'm kind of pro team let the board fall.
Okay.
Because I'm not convinced they'll be able to get there.
All right. So
it won't be from lack of effort.
For sure. Let's start this draft here. Let's just start and see what happens here. So we're going to start this. The speed might be going a little quick, so I'll try to pause after every 3rd pick. So first 3 picks. Wow. Caleb Williams 1 to the Bears, but Joe Alt going number 2 to the Commanders. They don't take a quarterback. And Drake May, with Gerard Mayo now in town with the Patriots, he goes New England. Do you think New England? I think New England might be a trade back option, right? With Mayo there, could they potentially move back, or are they just going to take the quarterbacks? They obviously need one more than almost any other position.
Everything with Washington and New England depends on if they choose to go the veteran route with Dave Canales leaving Tampa Bay, I think it's slightly more likely Baker Mayfield does too. I don't think it's a guarantee. I don't think anything's really a guarantee with this free agent quarterback class, but you have Kirk Cousins, you have Baker Mayfield, and then you have a wild card in Ryan Tannehill. Does he have anything left? I genuinely don't know. So if these teams look a bit, okay, there's wide receivers at the top, there's great offensive linemen. Maybe we go the veteran route and take a quarterback later on as a developmental guy. Then we can have at least a baseline for success right now and continue to build. There's a chance that these teams do that. I wouldn't, but I think there's a real chance that they could. And that's why you see Joe Alt being able to go at second overall. Is it smart? That's a whole different discussion.
This would just be like them taking Chase Young a few years ago instead of going the quarterback route.
All right, so picks 4, 5, and 6. It's Olani Fashanu, I believe it is, going to the Cardinals at pick 4. Marvin Harrison falls to 5 to the Chargers with now Jim Harbaugh in town. Justin Herbert, big offensive weapon there for him. And then Malik Neighbors, another can't-miss wide receiving prospect. He goes the Giants at pick 6. So Jaden Daniels still on the board here. If the Vikings are hoping he falls, we'll see what the next few picks go. Dallas Turner, Jaden Daniels to the Falcons, Teron Arnold to the Bears at pick 9.
Yeah.
Terrion Arnold, okay.
I love Terrion Arnold.
Yeah.
That dude is special.
If he had made it to 11, he's one of the names I would have, like, there you go. We got Kool-Aid McKinstry, right?
We got Kool-Aid McKinstry. I thought we were able to make the pick.
Did you, Declan, did you forget to select that we were going to draft for the Vikings?
I did select it. I thought I did. Or we're restarting this draft now, dang it. All right, let's do this again. I swear I did this already, but...
Hey, hold on.
We'll go... Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say make sure you select the number of rounds, too.
I'm going to do 5, just for our time's sake, but... All right, I swear I did this last time, so we'll do this again.
Odie is whining. He's very disappointed in you right now, Declan.
So let this board play out. It's a little different this time.
Hey, the Chargers still coming away with Marvin Harrison Jr. both times.
Okay.
That's great for them.
So we do have a trade offer here from Denver. We'd move back a spot. We'd get their second.
You take that in a heartbeat.
Take it.
Here's the rule I have when I use these mock draft simulators. Sometimes they're going to offer you trades that are completely unrealistic in reality, and this is one of them. So I would say no, because there's just no way they offer you a second round pick next year to go up one spot.
All right, how about this? This is a repeat of Quasey's first draft.
Yeah, just gonna say that's pretty comparable, except for we didn't get a future pick.
So yeah, the Ravens would make the call. They go up to 11. The Vikings go all the way back to 32, but they would get pick 64, pick 95, next year's second from Baltimore, next year's sixth from Baltimore.
I will say the one thing about this is the Vikings, if the Vikings can't go get a quarterback at 11 or like move up from 11, the Vikings need picks because they need players. And they only have 2 top 100 picks in this draft.
Right.
So again, I know people would freak out about this, and I'm not saying I wouldn't disagree. But the idea behind it isn't bad in the sense that you need capital. You need high-end players on this roster that they're missing. And maybe that's a scenario where you have Kirk back. And if Kirk's coming back, you need to add more weapons and more like ammo around him and that team. And I think that's a good way to potentially do it. So I'm not saying they should do it, but I wouldn't be as opposed to it as other people might be.
And the depth of this draft really drops off at about 75. Like top 75, and then there's a cliff.
So this one from the Colts, we move back 4 spots, get another second round pick 46, and then we'd also give up the 108.
This one feels like a better overall pick. I don't know how realistic it is, but I think I would definitely like that one the most because you don't move back that far, but you get another second round pick.
Point value wise, I think this tracks relatively well.
Does it? Okay.
I think it's a slight overpay for the Colts, but it's not it's not an egregious overpay where you're paying a second round pick to go up one spot. I think we could accept this and feel comfortable with it.
Quick, should we just see who's available on the board? Like
you can see right there.
Yeah. So there's Dallas Turner. Like the Vikings need edge, corner, D tackle, and I think the one thing that you see is there's at least 3 edge rushers and a D tackle still left. One high end corner.
Jared Verse is still there.
So I feel like if you move back 4 spots, one of those guys, let's say they all have them at around the same on their board, you're guaranteed one of those guys, and you get an extra top 50 pick. So to me that makes it a no-brainer.
And you could sell this pick because Rome Odunze is still on the board, and that's
we're gonna take it. We're gonna take it. Okay, I'm not gonna do another trade. I'm gonna reject.
Jeez, Rome Odunze with Chris Olave. That sounds
that's
beautiful.
pretty insane.
All right, boys. So we got options here. We got Latu. We got Jerzon Newton. So we got 2 options there on the defensive line if we want to go. Jared Verse is also there.
Cooper DeJean, Nate Wiggins. Like there's there's a lot of good players in that round for the Vikings that they could use.
I feel like Latu or Newton are probably our better picks here. Do you guys have one or the other you'd like to do?
If medicals are clean, it's Latu, and I don't think it's close because
I agree with that.
For a college pass rusher, you often don't see them come in with 2 defined moves that they can use consistently. Latu has 6 to 8, and he doesn't have the necessary bend or speed that you love with the pass rusher. So why Chop Robinson ended up going at 11 and why he's my number 1 edge. But what he does have is all the technical prowess and just brute grown man strength. Then when he punches with those hands, he knocks you out. And if the medicals look good with the neck, which is the big question mark with him, I think he should go right about here.
And I also think with the second round picks that you now have, you could focus on finding a D lineman in that range too, an interior D lineman within that range, and maybe even another corner.
Okay, let's go Latu. Let's assume the medicals are good here. We'll go Latu at pick 15. So we made our first selection. It is Latu.
It is wild to see Drake May was fell to 8 to the Falcons. I feel like in some of those scenarios, obviously in real life, the Vikings would probably do whatever they had to move up. But
look at who the Packers took.
Yeah, I saw that. Michael Penix to the Packers at pick 25.
Incredible.
Their next
gotta
guy.
love these.
Their next good guy. All right, so the Vikings. Let's see. You're on next on the board on 42.
Bo Nix to the Lions.
Bo Nix to the Lions.
Lad McConkey to the Ravens. I love that fit. I
do like
that
him.
fit.
Yeah, he's good.
If his name wasn't Lad McConkey, people would love him a lot more. But his name is Lad McConkey.
We have 2 picks at 42 and 46 here, so this will be interesting.
There's one that I'm disappointed in though. I really wanted to see if Sweat.
Perfect.
I really wanted Sweat to fall because in that scenario, would love.
The only weird thing about Tavondre Sweat is even though he's a nose tackle, he played like 80% of his snaps at 3 technique.
Yeah. Yep.
So that was really odd.
But I love that versatility.
Mm-hmm.
So the Vikings are going to be. We'll be back on the board here.
If he's a 2-gapper.
Yeah.
We'll be back on the board here in 4 picks. Do we want to take JJ McCarthy?
Yes.
Should we just do this? Take him as a future guy here?
I think you have to.
Okay.
You got extra capital, and you still get a guy like JJ McCarthy at pick 42. I think that's just a dream scenario if you can't get a guy in the first round.
All right, so back on the board. Pick 46. Troy Franklin, the wide receiver out of Oregon, goes to the Chiefs. Jackson Powers Johnson goes to the Raiders. Tyler, is it Guyton?
Yeah.
Yep.
I'd expect Guyton to go a lot higher because the athletic tools are nuts in this offensive tackle class. Like you could have a guy like Guyton sneak up at the 18th overall. Like this tackle class can be weird to see how they come off the board because there's 12 of them that could go in the first 2 rounds.
All right, so you guys, Byron Murphy, yeah,
that's my with a dot. Yeah. But I mean, I get it if there's Quinion Mitchell is good. I still think corner is a bigger need than we want to let on, but I don't know how free agency will handle either. But
I'm intrigued here by Brandon Dorless. Now, Dorless is kind of like a hybrid guy right now. I think he needs to put on 10 to 15 pounds, but he weighs about 275, 280, and he can play edge and he can play inside. And I think that kind of versatility and what this defense has to offer, you put him at 5 technique and you ask him, 291. I don't know. See, it says 291 there, and then it says 278 below. I don't know how much he actually weighs, but I think 5 technique in a 3-4 is probably what suits him best. You think of what Cam Hayward's done in Pittsburgh for the last decade. I think that's perfect for Brandon Dorless, and it beefs up that defensive line. I don't know if I'd like him more than Byron Murphy. I need to watch both in depth. Dorless flashed a lot this year, just like Murphy did. So that's one that I would be very intrigued by. And Quinion Mitchell has great ball skills. He's on my docket. We're recording this Friday morning. He's on my docket today. I can't wait to watch him and kind of see what that looks like at Toledo because the flashes are really, really good. But it's also the max, so you have to contextualize just a little bit.
So it's between Dorless, in my opinion, and Murphy. So Latu's a true edge, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can move him inside just like you move Hunter on the inside.
Right.
He's an edge.
Okay. Let's take Murphy. Let's take Murphy because it's a solidified defensive tackle, big guy in the middle that they need. So we will take that. So our first 2 picks, or 2 picks in the second round, are done. We're not back on the board till all the way down to pick 130. So we'll
now
let
look
this
at the
kinda
needs
speed
we've
up.
addressed with this
Yeah.
team so far, and with 3 top 50 picks. I feel like that's best case scenario the Vikings could find if they didn't get a quarterback in the first round.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, right? Like, this would be a pretty sweet scenario going 2 defensive tackle or defensive linemen, I should say, and a future quarterback. Like, that would be awesome.
And this isn't including free agency, which could really determine how the Vikings want to spend their draft capital. Because, like I wrote in my mock draft last week, if they see a Rome Odunze or Malik Neighbors at 11, they just may say, we're going to take him because he's just that good. And fixing things in free agency really allows you to attack BPA.
So board playing out here. We're almost on the clock. We're just finishing out the first 100 picks. Vikings not
Blake
on the clock.
Fisher to San Francisco is a good fit. Good value, too.
So now we're in round 4.
Declan, can we look at when we get to our pick running backs?
Okay.
I'd love to just kind of see what's available,
running backs?
just because I feel like that's a position that they should look to find in this round too, in this area.
Okay. Oh, Spencer Rattler goes to the Raiders at 112.
That's a good pick.
Okay, we're coming up here.
We should, because of kind of the depth in this range, we should take a look at wide receiver too,
Okay.
because there may be some value there.
I like it. All right, we're coming up here.
Fun fact: the Vikings have not taken a wide receiver between picks 2 through 4 since 2012.
Jerry is right?
Jarius Wright and Greg Childs. Yep.
All right, so the best running backs on the board.
Imani Bailey's. He's got some juice. He's a littler guy, but he's got some juice to him. I watched a little bit of him recently, but coming soon. But he was a guy I was intrigued by for sure. He's going to be down at the Senior Bowl, so he'll be a guy to keep an eye on.
Okay, how about Carson Steele out of UCLA?
Carson Steele, his hair is good as mine, and
Nice.
he's a really interesting person. So he's a Midwest kid. He squats like 600 pounds, and he has a pet alligator. Like he is an off the wall kind of.
Say he's white, huh? I was gonna say he got
you said it, not me. But you're 100% right. He's a unique enigma. Blake Watson from Memphis is a true dual threat. Transferred from Old Dominion to Memphis this past year. Gives you a little bit. I think George Holani screams Baltimore Raven. I don't necessarily think. Yeah, Odie agrees with me. I don't think he necessarily would fit everything that you want from this scheme, but I think he can run zone. Jawar Jordan. For you. Yeah.
Question for now for Steele. Is he the stereotypical like white running back that turns to fullback, or do you think he's like good? And I haven't watched enough of him to have an opinion. I'm just asking the question because I know that like stereotype does happen for white guys that like look Cooper DeJean is going to get it. Is he going to be moved to safety? Blah, blah, all those things, right? Like I'm just curious if Carson Steele is one of those guys that people are gonna start saying is gonna move to fullback or like hybrid H-back type.
Yeah, I think a lot of the DeJean stuff with moving to safety that really comes from how great he is at attacking downhill.
Yeah, for sure.
Because he's so good at attacking downhill. I think he struggles with the ball in the air with his back to the quarterback. Yeah, I don't think he's very good at it. But if he's coming at you, he's very, very good. So I kind of see the safety thing. I think with Carson Steele, it's going to be some athleticism questions because he's got the strength, he's got good vision, and he breaks tackles a lot. But how fast is he? How quick is he? I think he's going to have to answer those questions.
Yeah.
And if he answers them well, I think it's going to be less fullbacky. But he does have some of those kind of stereotypical things that you talked about, like the leg drive and being able to break tackles with contact, and he welcomes contact.
So he's Kyle Juszczyk. That's just what I heard, right?
I think he's more of a running back than Kyle Juszczyk.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. The one guy that like I don't think anybody really grabs me at this spot as far as running backs. No, I don't think so either. No. But let's take a look at receivers. This is a really interesting group of receivers. Jermaine Burton. I still have no idea how good he is because his last 2 years at Alabama were chaos. He was a former Georgia transfer, which going from Georgia to Alabama is kind of funny. You'd think he'd get a lot more run, and he flashed, but nowhere near any form of consistent. Malik Washington in the slot at Virginia, which Virginia, for lack of a better term, they were bad. But they were also dealing with the tragedy of 3 of their teammates being shot and killed on a bus last November. So it's just a weird time in Charlottesville. Over 1,000 yards from the slot. Brendan Rice, the son of Jerry, really technically sound. I don't think he's all that great of a prospect. Taj Washington, I think, is the best of the USC wide receivers. Really a slot guy, but can take you deep and take you deep with consistency. Anaya Smith, I'm not convinced he's a true wide receiver. I think he's probably going to be more of a gadget guy. That like a Curtis Samuel archetype. That's kind of how I see Anaya Smith. And Keandre Lambert-Smith, I don't know. Those Penn State receivers weren't good last year. I haven't watched them in depth, but I'd probably stay away at this point. I'm not really in love with any of these guys right now.
Let's go to the all real quick, Declan. Like where the board falls for all, and kind of quickly determine something.
Some linebackers around the board there that are best prospects.
If he's healthy, if you are comfortable enough with the medicals in round 4, because round 4 has 3 different types of players: great athletes with no production, great production and not a great athlete, and massive medical or off the field question marks. Peyton Wilson, if he had a clean bill of health, you could talk about him potentially in round 1. And
he's a guy I'd take a shot here on.
I would take that shot.
Did we run out of clock? What just happened here? Did our pick get made?
No, we're okay.
No,
the board just went weird. Should we take?
Yeah, let's just take him.
It's pick 130. If he only plays 4 years in the league, it's not the end of the world for a 4th round pick. Like, that's fine. It's more of a calculated risk. You'd get fired for making that pick in round 1. You're not going to get fired for making that pick in round 4.
No, give me that. Should we do, Declan? Should we just do this last pick and then quick go over the results and bounce?
We'll do 155 and 162, but let's make these picks quicker if we can. What should we do? Should we take should we take Carson Steele now at running for a running back? Should we avoid that? Maybe we get that at the last pick.
I think this is a good spot to take a guy like Carson Steele. Round 5.
Let's go for it.
Let's do it. Carson Steele. We got a running back. We got one more pick left, and this is just a 5-round mock too. So
one guy I really like is Dalen Holker from Colorado State as a tight end. Kind of more of an H-back at this point, but he's a great receiver down the field. And in that air raid, they really used him as a receiver, which is not something you normally get.
We just drafted our H-back, Forno, so we're good.
I think Carson Steele is actually going to be a running back.
I'm just playing.
What about Taj Washington, wide receiver out of USC?
I think a little slot dependent, but in this offense, I think he'd be fine because they do a lot of condensed sets. And obviously you saw the success Addison had on the outside. Like, I think
Who's the best kicker?
Don't even think about it.
It's Troy Taylor, the punter from Iowa.
Don't even think about it. I'll walk off. I'm out. My one rule is don't draft specialists.
Don't draft. Yeah, I understand. So what are we thinking here, fellas? Should we go one more skill position guy? Should we beef things up again on the defensive line?
What about O-line? Like the O-line, the depth on O-line could use some work too. What do we got there?
Guards are. I guess we can take a tackle.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of guard.
We don't. I mean, as of right now, heading into free agency, we have needs at backup center, at back interior left. We have at starting left guard. Yeah. I think is Blake Randall back one more year? I can't remember.
He's a restricted free agent, so yes.
Okay, so he'll be back. But then you have another offensive tackle. So like the depth there is pretty rough for the O-line, I think.
Okay.
I don't think Roger Rosengarten's going to be here. I think he's probably going to go late day 2, early day 3. He's very talented. Ladarius Henderson is a really, really good athlete. Hasn't put a lot of consistency on tape at this point. Zion Nelson has been in first rounds of mocks for the last 2 years prior to the season starting, but something happened where he just wasn't able to continuously put it together. Though I think those 3 would be really interesting dart throws to kind of see, okay, we're going to have you as a developmental guy. Can we make you more than what you are?
Let's take them. And then this board will finish out after round 5 after it completes. But we'll look at our I don't know if did they give us grades on Pro Football Network?
That I don't think so.
Okay. So that's it. Okay.
Because of the PFF algorithms that they do.
Results. Okay. So here's our results.
You know what I'll say is besides quarterback and edge, we kind of went less premium, but I think we filled a lot of the needs and found potential for guys where this roster needs it.
Yeah. I mean, the fact the Vikings, we still didn't have technically a third round pick, but you made 2 picks in round 2, which is awesome.
Right.
So you get obviously beefing up your defensive line with Latu and Murphy. You find your quarterback of the future in JJ McCarthy. I guess in this situation, Kirk was probably re-signed, not a given. But Peyton Wilson, a linebacker, Carson Steele. I mean, yeah, I think we answered like a lot of good questions here on this draft.
And
I also think go ahead, Forno.
one thing we can learn from the Lions is that I think premium positions are still really important, and there's obviously data to back that up. But if you take good football players, it'll work itself out in the end. And I think what we're going to end up seeing over the course of the next few years is a revolution with second level linebackers. Because if you have really good ones, it can really impact how your defense operates in a way that I don't think analytics is quite going to be able to quantify in a way like, hey, when we talk about premium positions. I think things are going to trend in that direction moving forward. I don't really have any data on it except just watching the games and be like, okay, look at the teams that are left. They all have great second level linebackers. Yeah. And I don't really think that's a mistake, especially with the 2 high shells that teams are using, and you have linebackers being asked to do so many different things, but you still need to stop the run when you play too high. You're not going to be able to load the boxes. So it wouldn't shock me if that's going to become a massive trend here moving forward. It's also going to be tough because the college game's not giving them to you.
Right. And I'm team like premium position all day. But like you look at a team like the Lions, they this last year, like they got criticized and rightfully so for their first round picks in Gibbs and Campbell. But those guys have been huge factors for that team getting to the NFC Championship. And then obviously their second round picks and Brian Branch and Laporta, thank you. Like they found guys that are early contributors that are just good football players. And I think that in itself, like you said, Forno, is huge. But I also think one point you mentioned, Declan, real quick, is JJ McCarthy getting there in the second round. I think what's great for the Vikings scenario is even if they don't bring Kirk back, no matter what the scenario is, if you could find a guy like JJ McCarthy within that top first 2 picks, that still goes a long way for you because that's a high investment on a guy. And then maybe you have a different vet bridge quarterback, let's say hypothetically Baker Mayfield, Ryan Tannehill. You name one of those guys. I think that's still a good scenario for the Vikings because they can then use that available cap space to help fill out some of the other parts of the roster that they probably couldn't do with Kirk. So I think there's a lot of those scenarios that I think people just like. Free agency comes before the draft, so you might have to live life going into the draft without Kirk Cousins, and I think that in itself is a reality that people have to explore. Because that you can't control. There's things you just can't always control. If Kirk gets outbid somewhere else, that he might not be back, but you still need to go get a quarterback in somewhere within the draft that might not be the first 3 guys.
I like it. Yeah, we'll do more of these live mock draft sims too on this show because that was a blast. So we'll have kind of different parameters as I was saying. Maybe we'll go into the draft knowing we're going to trade up, or we're for sure Kirk is back, so we're going to make the pick at 11, etc. So we'll have plenty of those
mock drafts
situations.
are for exploring situations and seeing what happens if this happens, and then everything's a domino effect from there. Because you know what? A Laramie Tunsil bong gas mask could happen again. Probably won't, but something crazy like that happens a lot of the time.
I need Caleb Williams, man. Caleb Williams.
What happens if Williams falls to 5? There are things like that can happen.
Like, hey, God. Caleb, if you really want to come to Minnesota, let's make it work.
Hell yeah. And if you guys want Forno to kind of key in on anyone at the Senior Bowl, drop a comment. I'm sure Forno will be surfing through them. So if you want him to look at anybody, looking for anyone in particular, hit up Forno in the YouTube comments or on Twitter as well. And we'll have a nice little full report on our next episode of Purple Daily on Draft. Hit that subscribe button. Daily Vikings Entertainment. This is Purple Daily on Draft. Tyler Fornes, Miles Gorham, Declan Goff here.